everybody, how's it going? Dan Schinder here on Drum Talk TV, and I'm so excited to finally have Robyn Flans on as my guest. We have a special project to talk to you about. Tell us where you're watching from. I'm in Globe, Arizona, 100 miles east of Phoenix in the mountains, and Robyn is basically where I grew up in the West San Fernando Valley, part of Los Angeles, big Los Angeles. How are you, Robyn?
I'm excellent. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited to receive this new, most inclusive biography about Jeff Porcaro because, you know, what a mark he made on not just drumming, but as a musician at such a young age. Unfortunately, we lost him at 38 years old, actually not far from where I was living. And I remember hearing the news, and it's still a shock, you know, when something like that happens out of nowhere. So first of all, please tell everybody, give them like a quick synopsis of the book and how it's different from anything else they've seen or read about Jeff, because you have not just interviews with Jeff, but Donald Fagen, Peter Frampton, all kinds of other insight that you tapped into, which I think is fabulous.
Well, I believe that I have the most interviews with Jeff on the planet.
Wow.
He and I met through Modern Drummer.
Yeah.
And we became good friends. I mean, it was just instant. And I ended up doing a lot of interviews with him for Modern Drummer. I mean, he never, ever said no.
That's great.
And he was at my disposal. He was amazing. And so anytime there was anything to discuss, whether it be just an Ask a Pro question, you know, for a minute or 10 or 20, he was there. I mean, it was, you know, if he was at a session, it was a callback. I mean, he was great. And so I had a lot of information. And I don't know what even got me to thinking that there should be a book. I don't know. I just think I felt like the keeper of the flame.
Yeah.
I just knew that there were people that needed to, that wanted more,
Yeah.
and they just needed to have it. And it certainly wasn't for me, because it was, you know, I was trying to make a living writing, you know, my articles for other people and stuff. This took me probably 8 years or so.
Wow.
And of course, it was just a labor of love. And I stopped a few times, and you know, it just was. It had a life of its own, but I just felt all along that he deserved it. He needed it. His family deserved it. And what I found out was that even the people I spoke to needed it. For them, it was a catharsis. For them, it was, they all said, thank you for letting me do this. I needed to talk about him. I needed to have this time to reflect on him, to get it out, to cleanse myself, to everyone, you know, who worked with him, who participated in this book, loved him the way I love him, and wanted to have that time to reflect.
Right.
So that's the purpose of the book, to share with people who love him. I think what's different is that there isn't anything else, and I don't think there will ever be anything else. I mean, this is not ego.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
This is strictly, I mean, this is complete love for Jeff. And everything that was done was complete love for Jeff, from all the people who participated and for the writing. I mean, there's just no way else to say it. I mean...
Yeah, with so many years passing since his passing, I totally see how for people close to him all the way to people that were just fans of his music, whether they were drummers or not, fans of the music he played on, how this closes a loop and also I think fills a big capacity of an empty cup of things that someone who made such a mark on music, now they're going to learn a lot of things about him that I'm sure they didn't learn and maybe always wondered about. And it's awesome that you've done this by putting it all in one place. And again, not only including your interviews, but can you mention some of the insight, without giving away too much, because of course we want people to read the book, but can you talk about some of the insight nuggets that you gathered from Donald Fagen, who of course you worked a lot with, and Peter Frampton and other artists? And I do want to tell the audience that I will take questions. I'll be looking over here at the monitor, so go ahead and ask questions for Robyn, and we'll get to that in just a moment.
Yeah, there were things that, I found out. One reader told me that they were surprised to find out that Jeff was such a good dancer.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And I didn't know that either.
Wow.
It was, and then I realized that it kind of fell. Page told me that, David Page. And then I realized that Crofts told me that he was coming at the end of the shows. He started coming out in the front during the encores, and he would leave the drums and come out front and dance.
Oh, wow.
And so I realized that, that was a thing. And I never really knew that. And I think he started doing that at the Toto shows too.
Oh, wow.
During the encores. So, it was, I never knew that.
That's very interesting.
And David said they would go dancing after the Sonny and Cher gigs at clubs.
Wow.
So that, it was a theme. It was a theme. So that was something I found out. Like you said, I don't want to give too many things away. There were some surprises. And I'll tell you what, there was even something that Joe Porcaro told me. I'm not going to say what.
Okay. But
that I had to do a lot of checking out.
Oh, really?
Because I didn't believe him.
To make sure he wasn't pulling your leg?
That's right.
How funny.
And, a reporter always has to check. Not just because it was Joe. And actually, this thing that he told me, I'm teasing this now. Thing that he told me, I went to Steve Porcaro and I said, is this true? And Steve said, oh, I don't know. He said, I don't really know at all. My dad sometimes doesn't remember things the way they really happened. And so I had to go on a real search to check it out, and it turns out it was true.
Oh, I can't wait to read that. That's great.
So a reporter has to verify all information given, even if it's a family member.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what took so long. Jeff wasn't here to, a lot of that stuff. Yeah. A lot of that stuff was, because Jeff and I mostly talked drums.
Yeah.
It was mostly stuff for Modern Drummer.
Yeah.
And, this was not a drum book.
Right. It's the story of his life and him.
So it was really hard, and I have to thank, the family was so amazing, Dan. I could not have done this book without Jolene Porcaro. Duddy. She, I drove these people crazy. I'm telling you, and Lukather and David Page and Steve Porcaro and David Hungate. I don't want to forget him. I drove all these people, and Joe Porcaro, but not as much. But I drove them nuts.
Were they on board from the beginning of the idea?
From the beginning.
That's great.
From the beginning.
Yeah, I'm sure they felt the same thing. They wanted people to really understand the legacy that he left behind.
They all knew me. They all knew me. I had done interviews with Toto along the way too.
Yeah.
So Paige and Luke knew me well, and Steve Porcaro. And Jolene, of course, knew of me because I had done all these interviews with Jeffrey and Joe. I had done interviews with Joe. So, I was a real known entity to all these people. And, later, as the process grew, Steve Porcaro said the most meaningful thing to me. He said, I am so glad that it's you that's doing this.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
He's very stingy with his compliments. Let's put it that way. And that meant the world to me. So
that's awesome. Do you, and I'll look at comments, folks, I promise. I see that someone asked if it's available on Amazon, and then they typed in, Bob Palmer said he answered his own question and just ordered it. Great. So it's on Amazon, and the link to it on Hudson is in the post. So if you're interested, folks, the link's right there. Do you have a favorite work? I know it's hard to narrow it down with someone like this. It's like saying, what's your favorite Led Zeppelin song? If you're a Led Zeppelin fan, the answer is pretty much all of them.
That's favorite work?
Yeah.
Wait.
Of yours that you admire most.
Someone asked me that question recently. I love Toto 4. You weren't asking me for one song, were you?
Right. No. Whatever resonates with you for the best answer. Yeah.
I love Toto 4 because I love Georgie Porgy and Rosanna and Africa.
Yeah.
But I loved their first album, which, Georgie Porgy's on their first album.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Take that back. Hold the Line, and but Rosanna and Africa are on Toto 4, and it's really impossible. Silk Degrees just does me in. It's just so impossible for me to answer that question.
Yeah, there's such a wide body of work there. And the interesting thing about Toto that I've always admired is that when they came out and continued through their career, they didn't really sound like anybody. And a lot of times when a band doesn't sound like everything else out there, that's credited to the singer, rightly so, or the sound of the keyboards or the sound of the guitar. Jeff definitely was a big part of their sound and why they didn't sound like just everybody else, even though he had already played on so much popular music by then with Steely Dan and so much other session work.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, and let's not forget Steely Dan.
Yeah.
He lied, and can't forget that. And Donald Fagen's work. You can't. And I learned about, several tracks, you'll find them in the book, that I didn't realize that he played on. And in fact, so a lot of the readers are telling me that they learned about several tracks that they didn't realize that he played on.
Yeah.
That we explore in the book. And the fun thing that they're realizing to do is to play the tracks as they come upon them in the book. So they yell out to Alexa to play this tune.
Yeah.
And of course I don't have her, but
that's cool because they're connecting it while they're reading it. It's almost like those, you go to a museum and you put the headphones on and you walk with the wand and it automatically, it's like a walking tour and it tells you about that piece of art or that skeleton of the dinosaur or whatever. It's sort of like doing the same thing, which is really neat.
They're saying that they're getting a lot out of it by doing it that way. So I just want to bring that to the foreground and tell people that might be a fun thing to do or just an informative thing to do.
Yeah, because I bet there's a lot of stuff I think this works this way with a lot of musicians that do peripheral work, other than maybe the band they're known for, and especially for younger people that are, well, let's say under our age, like 30 or younger. They might not be familiar with all this other session work they did, or they guested on this, or toured with this band because someone got ill or hurt or married or pregnant or whatever. And then they discover, like, wow, I never knew. Like you said, I never knew he played on this or that. And that's always a fun discovery because you might be familiar with that music but not realize that was the person on it.
Yeah, my son is 30 years old. He's a notable drummer in New York, and he's got a bunch of friends that are ordering the book. And I'm thinking to myself, they can't possibly know the work that Jeff has done. I mean, they might think they know
Right.
all the work he's done, but I don't even think my son realizes the body of work that Jeff has done. I mean, when they
I'm not sure Jeff knew. That's a lot of work.
yeah, I mean, we have a discography at the end of the book. And I mean, that somebody compiled most of. I mean, it's from a site that gave us permission. We've made sure we have it pretty up to date.
Yeah.
And it's really extensive. And a lot of people have gone, whoa, seeing that discography is impressive.
Yeah.
Jeff would be pretty impressed too.
Yeah, he was like the modern day Hal Blaine, just the go-to guy, and it didn't matter what you needed from him. And I've heard that he was one of the best people to work with, and not just because he was able to play what you needed him to play, but I mean as a human being to work with. And the things that you mentioned earlier in our talk about him always just being available and all of that, I really believe that that's one of the things that usually makes drummers different from most other musicians. No offense, guitar players or keyboard players, but I think drummers are much more open and forthcoming about sharing everything from their technique to their gear and just wanting to talk about their craft more. And I think Jeff really embodied the epitome of one of the things that makes drummers different from other musicians.
You will read about him, his acts of kindness in the book, with other, kindness to other drummers, kindness in uncomfortable situations with other drummers. He was an extraordinary human being, and wouldn't take any bull,
Yeah.
from people, but he was an extraordinary human being, and he was very very kind. Very kind. You'll read a lot about him that you didn't know as a human being, what kind of person and the kinds of things that he valued, and how he brought just light and his presence to a session, the smile that people say that he always brought to a session. I mean, across the board, the producers and the musicians I spoke to, they just loved working with him. I mean,
that's awesome.
Lee Sklar said that when he had a session and wrote it in his calendar, the only words he would write on the calendar were Jeff Porcaro.
That's awesome. Yeah. He sounds like he is the model for a quote that I got when I interviewed Chris Slade, who played with The Firm. He played in AC/DC. He was in Uriah Heep. And he said, when I asked him, what's your idea of the perfect drummer, regardless of style? And he said, you got to be good, you got to show up sober, and you got to love people. Sounds like Jeff really loved people and being around people and being part of the process. Is there sections in the book where he literally sort of delineates the live experience versus the creative and studio experience?
Oh yeah, we talk about that a lot, and he talks a lot about, you know, the criticism that they, Toto, and he, as Jeff, had as being studio players, because they really got a raft of, you know what, for being session guys. And why was that bad?
Yeah, exactly. I can't even think of a misunderstanding about that. Like,
I mean, it's like, so it's a bad thing to be able to play with Paul McCartney?
Anybody? Yeah.
Barbara Streisand? I mean, you have to suck to do that? So
Crazy.
it's, you know, a lot of interesting perspective. And the conversation of live playing, and Dash Crofts talks about it, and a lot of the producers talk about. I mean, it's great. There's a lot of.
Nice. I want to look at comments real quick and see who's saying hello and has questions. George Hawk says, "Got the book, enjoying it very much." Maddie Pedersil, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, says Jamie and I are still tuning in.
It's my son and his girlfriend.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Maddie. Jan says, phew, I made it. And my book arrived today. Awesome, Jan, thanks. If I remember right, I think, Jan, you're in either Netherlands or Norway, if I remember right. I'm probably way off. He's probably in like Canoga Park or something.
No. He's way over there.
Yeah.
He's administrator of the Jeff Porcaro Memorial Site.
Oh, awesome. And Rob Mitzner, who's an awesome drummer, great friend of the show, and Hudson Music, doing some play-along videos people will see soon, says, congrats, Robyn. Looking forward to reading. He mentioned to me earlier he knows your son as well.
Yeah.
Don Worth says, my book should arrive this week. John Berger. Hey, John says, wonderful book. Thank you, Robyn and Hudson. Rob Wallace. Okay, there's always some troll. Here's some Rob Wallace guy saying, hey, Rob, thanks for tuning in. And thanks for making this happen with Robyn. It's just so, you know, what a treat. I can't wait to read this book. And it's, don't get me wrong when I say this, when I say it's long overdue. Things happen when they're supposed to happen. But when I say it's long overdue, meaning, you know, finally we get to see this peek behind the curtain and learn all these things about such a legendary musician. Well, you know, when we lose somebody at such a young age, About Time is the name of the book. Yeah, it's about time.
It's
exactly. I love it. You know, when we lose someone that's so legendary, especially at a young age, and time passes by, especially in my case, being just a few years younger than Jeff at that time, and then you go through these decades of life, become a senior. So you kids just wait, become a senior citizen. And I look back and I think of Jeff, and I still think of him as way up here as a senior, not just in age, but just in this sort of larger than life, you know, image I have of him as a mentor through his music. And now your book is going to really like humanize that for people. I know that without even reading it yet. It's going to humanize him even more for people because of all these neat stories that a lot of it, I'm sure, has nothing to do with how he tuned his drums or how this beat went or how this recording said. It's about the man, and the music is part of that story, right?
Right. It's exactly what it is.
I can't wait.
That's really what I wanted to bring to people was who Jeff was, and I hope, I mean, someone said to me, and it meant everything to me early on in the process. He said, I never got to meet Jeff, even though we were around the same circles, but your book has really made it so that I feel like I know him. And that just, I mean, if I did anything, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's it.
Yeah. Did Jeff have a sense of humor, or was he more stoic?
Oh no, he had a sense of
Okay,
humor.
so again, typical drummer.
And sometimes it was dark, very, very dark. And you will read some of the darkness in the book. You know, like I say in the preface, he was not, this is not just Pollyanna.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I certainly picked and chose my stories. He wasn't Pollyanna, and I wouldn't have wanted him to be. He was
Right.
Jeff. He had the mischief he was a mischief maker, and he did art. He was a major artist. There's some art in the book that shows his art.
Oh, wow.
Some of it was a little, John Lennon-ish, a little kind of skewed, odd. And there are stories about that too.
Great.
So, yeah, he had a sense of humor, and some of it was quirky. Let's say the word quirky.
Nice. I have a question, Robyn, about your personal process of when you decided to do this, and you mentioned you worked on it on and off over the span of 8 years. When you first came up with the idea, having spent so much time with Jeff, yet at the same time having so much documentation fragmented in different places over so much time, how did the idea come to fruition? As far as when you thought of it, did you know the immediate structure and what you wanted to include, or did you really have to sit down and kind of like detectives when they have everything on the wall and the strings attached? Which side of that spectrum did it lean to?
I don't even know. It just, I always knew how I was going to open the book.
Oh, nice.
Because it sort of opens with the most, sort of the, what's the word I want to say? The point at which everybody's life changed.
Oh.
And then it goes back.
Yeah.
So I knew that. And then I guess it became a timeline.
Oh, okay.
And with the different interviews I I was able to procure, I would just fit them into the slot, the timeline. It just began to write itself.
That's awesome. Is there a lot of photography of Jeff in there?
There are a lot of pictures.
Okay.
And a lot of never before seen pictures because the family was so kind to me.
Yeah.
Jolene was, oh my God, she was amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was so amazing. And I have, young pictures of family photos and like I said, his artwork.
Yeah.
And it just, the pictures are awesome. The pictures are just awesome. And Rob Wallace did the artistic things that I asked of him. I was very demanding.
As far as the layout and whatnot, physical
the amount
composition.
of photos, the way I wanted the cover presented. More important than anything about the book or the agreement that we were to make as the publisher and the writer, more important to me about anything was the treatment artistically of what it would look like. And he is my hero.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rob fulfilled every one of my requests.
Oh, that's great.
And I am very grateful because the book looks just the way I wanted it to look.
What do you want, in as simple as terms of as possible, even broad stroke, what do you want people to take away from this book the most from reading it?
I want them to feel like they met Jeff.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I just want them to feel like, and I want them to feel him, to feel like it brought him back into their lives a little bit more, because everyone has missed him so much.
Yeah.
You know, someone said to me, well, somebody a little bit in the dark place said, you know, he wouldn't really like all this attention. You know, he would never have allowed you to write this book. And I said, if he were alive, I wouldn't probably be writing this book.
Right, exactly. They're talking apples and oranges and don't even realize it. Yeah.
But people miss him.
Yeah.
And they're entitled to have that, because they all miss him, and they need a piece of him again.
More than beyond the music. That's what this is doing. We can all put on the legendary music he played on for all those years, but this is taking them to a whole other level of knowing who he was as a person and all of that, which is so
and
important.
Everybody is so grateful, Dan, and I'm so happy I can give that to them.
Yeah.
It's just an honor.
That's great. I can't wait to read this. This is great. I hope you folks are excited about it. I want to look at some more questions real quick, see if anyone has more questions. Oh, Billy Amendola says, reading the book now and digging it. Congrats, Robyn. Happy for you. Hey, Billy, how's it going? Hope you're well. Hey, Rob. Andy Connell says, oh, wow, hi, guys from the UK. Came across this by accident. Jeff is my hero. So excited. Andy, very cool. Very cool. We'd love for you to read the book and be inspired to record some music Jeff played on and send it to us as a homage. That would be awesome, people. Very cool. And yes, Jan is in Norway. Awesome. Mike Skinner, hi from South Wales. Hey, Mike, how are you? Hope everybody's well. Very cool. I have kind of an odd question for you, and I have to preface it with this. I was extremely close to my parents, who were both gone, and I took care of both of them at the end of their lives. And I had the kind of relationship where I didn't leave anything on the table. You know, neither of us did. Once in a while, I'll think of something not really that important where I would think, I never asked them that. But it's nothing monumental, you know. Nothing that would be life-changing if I knew the answer. My question is, on any level at all, is there something you would ask Jeff today that has come to you since, or you realize you never asked, or knowing what you know now from putting the book together, is there something about anything in there that you would ask him today?
Oh, there's so many things, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. There are a lot of things. I mean,
how many of them start with, what were you thinking when?
yeah, that too, but mostly, you know, one thing is I want to know what made him ever cry.
That's a deep question.
Because that's something I pondered throughout the book.
Oh, wow.
And I talk about it in the book a little bit.
Okay, great.
So that's a question.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a very profound question when we think of it in terms of someone that we all know as fans and probably have never seen them cry or got to know them that well. It's a very interesting question.
So I'm kind of struck that you asked me that. That was a huge. I mean, I spoke to every family member about that. You'll see in the book.
That's awesome.
That was something that kind of consumed me.
Awesome. Folks, the beautiful book cover is right there on the player with Robyn and I. The title, It's About Time, The Man and His Music, is all about the life of Jeff Porcaro, one of the most influential, there it is, in 3D, one of the most influential drummers from so long ago and at such a young age. And this is why his story is so important and still so relevant today. I have a little secret, fun fact sort of thing that ties in with Jeff. When I cook, and my wife and I both love to cook, usually a lot of times I cook for whatever reason. I'm just realizing that. And I used to have a cooking show on TV actually years ago. But when I come out of this cave or the studio that's here and I cook, that's my time to really unwind. And I blast some music with a big Bluetooth boombox. And I'd say 70% of the time I put on Steely Dan music that Jeff played on. And that's like my cooking soundtrack. That's the soundtrack to me cooking. So I hear Jeff a lot. And it always inspires me to go down and play to that music and remind me of all the lessons that are in everything Jeff played, all the lessons, not just as a drummer, but as a musician, as far as dynamics and just beat placement and just the discipline of laying back. And I'm not very fond of the term playing for the song, because Neil Peart on La Villa Strangiato played for the song. Carl Palmer on Tarkus played for the song. So I don't really know if people just mean that means 4/4 and give it some space. I get that, but Jeff played that instrument the best it could have been played for those songs, just like the organ was, just like Walter Becker's guitar was, just like Donald's piano was. You know, everything that he played on, of course, with Toto. So there's some wonderful lessons in his music without him being there to show you, and there's some great material, of course, through Hudson. But the point is, if you really just listen, you can really hear what's being done there, and it's great. It
But Dan,
is.
that's what most everyone I spoke to, producers and musicians alike, said about Jeff.
Oh wow, that's
that
neat.
he played for the song.
Yeah.
So you may not love that term, but that's
But I do get it. Yeah, I do get it.
exactly what everyone said. And by the way, I think most people who are fans of Jeff know that Steely Dan is the music that he was most proud of that he played.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was played at his funeral too.
Oh, what song, may I ask, or is it in the book? If it's in the book, we'll wait and people can read it.
No, it's not in the book. I didn't talk about his funeral at all. I didn't go there. All the Katie lied and stuff. It was, but honestly, I blocked his funeral out.
Yeah.
I've had problems remembering anything except
The good stuff.
holding Luke in my arms and sobbing.
Yeah.
That's all I remember from that day.
Yeah. Well, Robyn, I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking about this wonderful body of work you've created, from Jeff's body of work, not just from his music, but from his life. And I hope that everybody's inspired to put on some music that features Jeff Porcaro and the many backup bands he had, Steely Dan, Toto. He had some great backup bands. So I hope you all give it a read.
I'd like to hear that they were a backup band.
Give it a read and give his...
Steely Dan.
Yeah. We all know the truth, though. Give it a read and give it a listen and be inspired. And Robyn, thank you. And thank you, Rob Wallace, for really making all that happen and being as submissive as you were to Robyn's creative demands so that the product ended up being what it is. I guess that's the best way to put that, I hope.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
You're very welcome. We'll do it again sometime. Hang on the line after I say goodbye. I want to thank everybody for joining Robyn Flans and myself, the author of It's About Time, Jeff Porcaro. The man and his music, just I'm really excited about this. And thanks for following what we do here on Drum Talk TV. We will see you all soon. And if you joined us late, it's going to archive in just a moment. And you'll also be able to find it on Instagram, YouTube, and Vimeo. So watch the whole thing and share it with people who you know would dig this. Thanks, everybody.